She invented the word corporate social investment.
I think CSR has been looked at as a metric, as a tick mark, as a compulsion. I think that's what we want to remove. Then Samyak and I will turn the world upside down to make sure that that happens. I think that's all that matters to us. And of course,
In many ways, Nimaya operates like any AI-enabled tech startup, except that we don't take money home.
because you feel that, is this something that is actually going to be worth my daughter's time?
Why can't a young woman from a small town also aspire to work as a product manager at Google?
And she said that I want to go home and teach this to my Nani. And that to us is a success because
We also have a very exciting program coming up called Create a Nari, where we enable young women from restricted backgrounds to become creators.
They are taught how to train a chatbot. So what are the tools and who are the facilitators who are helping them?
What is one of the biggest flaws of our education system? That the burden of its success is on the student, not the teacher.
I think for us at Nimaya, we're pushing the boundaries of what a traditional job looks like.
Then we say chat GPT इसमें से कौन है? चतुर रामलिंगम. तो आपको क्या बनना है? Rancho.
The heart of what we do are the Naris. So they are our biggest partners.
Given that, in future, are you guys planning to, partner with any big AI companies?
I think only when the two of us come together can we truly create.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech Talk. And today I have two special guests with me, Navya, Nanda and Samyak Chakraborty, who are the founders of Nimaya, and they are working to empower women from restrictive backgrounds in AI. So hello and welcome Navya and Samyak. And before we dive in, obviously we will dive into deeper conversation about AI and women, but it will be great if you guys, describe me what Nimaya stands for, what is your vision and mission for the organization.
Firstly, thank you for having us here. We're big fans of your work, and we're really, really looking forward to talk a bit more about what we are doing. So to speak about Nimaya, Nimaya means opportunity in Sanskrit, and I think that's really the basis of what we began this organization with, is to give opportunities. Like you said, we have a large focus on women. I have a personal passion and have been for the last 4 or 5 years working in the space of women, especially in education. And Samyak and I came together and we thought that to build a really future forward organization, we needed to put his expertise in the education space and the skilling sector, as well as what I was doing with women, together to create Nimaya, and that's where it was born. I think Nimaya for both of us, apart from being an opportunity that we can share with others, is also a mission that we have been on and have been trying to grow for the last few years on building future forward development sector organizations. I think that's what Samyak and I's vision is, and we have a very, very strong focus on AI, which we feel is something that will change the world that we live in and the world of work as well. But more importantly, I think it's crucial for everybody to understand how AI can impact our lives, especially women's lives. And Nimaya is all about building that narrative of how can we take AI, use that to empower the workforce of India, which I personally believe women are largely becoming a part of, and how do we prepare them for a world where AI is going to not only just take over how we work and how we conduct work on a daily basis, but also how we can take the country forward. I think there's a large potential for that, and Nimaya is here to support that vision and that dream.
Right. And
I
Samyak.
think to add to what she said, in a thought process that kind of Navya introduced in my mind and in the culture of Nimaya is, why do we always assume that skill development initiatives for women or youth from underserved communities should be limited to your conventional vocational skills? If you look at majority of CSR spending on upskilling today in our country is going to ITIs, is going to vocational skills like data entry and so on, which was good at the time that it was needed, but most of these skills will be automated, right? So then the question is, why can't a young woman from a small town in Haryana or a Mumbai police constable's daughter, some of the profiles that we work with, also aspire to work as a product manager at Google? She should be able to, so she should be enabled to. But that mindset that when it comes to CSR, when it comes to upskilling a certain demographic, do the basic, I think through Nimaya, Navya and I want to change that. Today it's AI. We also have a very exciting program coming up called Create a Nari, where we enable young women from restricted backgrounds to become creators. Maybe in 5 years it could be robotics or drones. Nimaya is saying where you are born is your starting point. It's not a limitation or a cap on how far you can go.
Amazing. I think you both have established that what Nimaya is and what Nimaya, positions itself as. So, like you said, that when it comes to upskilling, and specifically when it comes to upskilling for women, there are a lot of challenges. Obviously, there are, and now with AI coming into the picture, definitely where the entire world is getting upskilled in the new technology, women remains a very important piece of the puzzle. So what are the challenges have you guys seen when you have gone there, into the ground reality, and when you have tried to upskill those women coming from the restrictive backgrounds? If you can share some of them.
I think before answering your question, I think when we're talking about, upskilling and preparing women for this new world of work, especially with AI and Gen AI and Chat GPT and all different forms of technology that have, of course, made our lives easier, we've also seen it replacing a lot of human jobs, right? Like Samyak said, there is a large fear in the labor market today, where we see a lot of people afraid of where their future lies when it comes to a particular job role. And I think in a generation, in a world where AI has become very, very important, I think women have an added advantage to stand out in that crowd, or in that fear of losing out on something. Because I think that skills that matter more today would be things like critical thinking, emotional intelligence, problem solving. And I personally believe that women, have a lot of these qualities within them from birth. I feel women are exceptional managers, great CEOs, great leaders, and I think it's about putting those skills into a workplace context in order to help them apply that in today's way of working, whether it's at an office level or even in any field. It could be a creative field, it could be the business sector. I think these are skills that are increasingly becoming more and more important. So I think the first challenge that we faced is trying to help people understand how AI can impact their lives, both in negative and positive ways. I think technology has given us great things. It's also taken away a lot of things from us. So I think the first challenge was to really set the context of what AI can bring to, especially in this context, the workplace. And second, how these skills, which for a long time have been called soft skills, and Samyak and I largely disagree with the term soft, because we feel that these are skills that are outweighing learning how to code, or things that we would otherwise consider hard skills. So in order to explain to people that they're not soft, these are probably your superpowers in today's world, I think that was a challenge, in order to explain to them that this is a program, or what we're trying to do is something that is going to help you work alongside AI. That was the initial challenge. And I think the second challenge as well, I think a lot of people, especially from the areas that we work in and the demographics that we work with, there is a hesitancy to, think a little bit future forward sometimes, because you feel that, is this something that is actually going to be worth my daughter's time? And that's something we faced with families of, the young girls that we work with, is trying to explain to them how this would actually benefit their daughter's life, which I feel is the largest mission of Nimaya. Is how do you take this to the last mile? How do you democratize access to AI, not just to work alongside it, but also to help people understand what it is, how it impacts our lives? Because it's not just something that stops at an office or in a tall glass building, right? This is something that we can see across the country, no matter what your profession is, no matter where you live. Everyone has access to a phone, everyone has access to Chat GPT. And I think taking that context to a larger audience was, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we've faced so far.
I think to add to this, what Nimaya is doing is actually a little multi-layered, right? So what Nimaya is saying is that to effectively use artificial intelligence, you have to enhance your natural intelligence, which is another word that we use for soft skills. Because, for example, if you aren't a critical thinker, you won't be an effective prompter, because a good prompt is one that is nuanced, that is embedded with context and so on. And then you have follow-up questions when you work with AI. But that is actually critical thinking. It's not a technology skill. But to draw the link between, okay, to learn AI, you need to enhance your natural intelligence, and how together these two are probably more powerful in workplace success than the degree you have. We all here agree, and your audience will agree, because that's what a World Economic Forum to Harari is saying. But how do you take that to a college principal and a parent in a small town in Haryana, or a small town in Maharashtra, or a small town in UP, some of the regions that we work in? I think that's our greatest challenge, because I think we still live, we still live in the 90s. And I would not say this as for us as a country, but I think global population, like on one side, yes, people are advancing in technology, but the other, we are still not willing to shake out of our comfort zones. And I think that's a problem that we face. But another challenge, very interestingly, that we as Nimaya face is, um, trainers. So in India, we have a very conventional archetype of trainers. That is typically somebody who's semi-retired, and wants to share their wisdom. But unfortunately, because the world is changing so fast, somebody who's today 50 and probably worked 5 years ago may not be able to keep our learners up to speed the way they need to be. So we are trying to build an army of 28, 29-year-old trainers who are essentially people like yourself, who do have a day job, but now you're having this conversation with me. Hopefully you'll collect some wisdom. Now you are most qualified to pass it on to our Naris, if you were to go to the classroom and teach. So we're also trying to crack that challenge, because at the end of the day, no curriculum is effective without the medium through which it is being delivered.
Right. I understand. So, like when you said that you go to the demographics like Haryana and in the villages in Maharashtra and all those places, how do you enroll them? Is there a particular process that you have? Like, how do you reach out to them, or how do you talk to their parents or convince them? Is there a process in place?
So we've worked, across India at this point. We've done large batches of our programs in Haryana, in Faridabad, in Mumbai, Gujarat. We had a very large batch that we did last year in Lucknow as well. I think the first step is to, when we start from step zero, is to identify our audience. And our audience, like Samyak said, are college students, girls who are in second or third year of college. We identify that demographic first. We then look at colleges that we can partner with. We have now fortunately had a great set of partners who we repeat the program with every year, but we find colleges in the area or demographic that we want to enroll the students in.
And are they all tier 2, tier 3 cities?
Yes.
And colleges, tier 2
Yes.
colleges?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
After that, we go and speak to the principal of the college. We talk to them about what Nimaya is, what Nimaya does, the aim that we have with the program, how it will benefit their students. After which we start the enrollment process, through which the college, along with our team, we essentially talk about this program on a larger scale to the students. After that, Samyak and I usually hold something that we like to call an informative session, where we sit and talk to the girls about AI and their general opinions around it, what Nimaya can actually bring to the table when it comes to them building their careers after college. And I think that age group and that time in our lives is a very important period, because that's when you're just about to enter the job market. So we talk to them about what they can expect, how it's rapidly changing, how learning a lot of these skills will only give them what we also like to call a VIP pass to success, which is an added benefit that a lot of people who don't master skills when it comes to technology and AI have. After which we then open up the forms for admission and enrollment. And like Samyak said, a large part of what we've also done in the past is actually visit a lot of the students and their families and interacted with them, because convincing them is also a very, very large part of what we have to do. And in order to bring them on board and get them to kind of take it seriously, convincing and talking to their families is also a very large part. After which then, after they express interest, they're enrolled into the program, and then we start the process.
I think the first principle of Nimaya's approach to this is, sharing very casually that we want to be Robin Hoods of exposure, right? So we're saying that if aspects or topics like purpose, future of work is something that everyone should know, how do you take it to where it actually matters? So while she's being very humble, but she's in many ways a role model and an icon for the young women. Like I remember walking with her in a small village called Bahadurgarh in Haryana, and from nowhere these young college girls come and spot her. And the reason I share this is because if I were to take this very senior hoity-toity HR head from a large company to this audience, because we can do that, they would feel a bit intimidated, right? But what happens is, of course, there's Navya. We even partnered with Prajakta Kohli or Pooja Dingra, who are also female icons themselves, and we then take such people to this audience, and we make them see why these skills are so essential, because the people we take embody them, rather than saying, oh, you need to learn this, and if you don't learn this you won't get a job, you are going to be automated. That doesn't work here. They have a very different social and monetary reality, and a emotional reality that we have to keep in mind. So the entire design of Nimaya's approach is more inclusive of what would excite them, because frankly what Navya and I realized is, it's not exciting them or fearing them that robot aapka job le lega, yeah, you get to work with AI. But yes, what excites them is, oh, by doing this, I will be able to create my own identity. And this could be anything then. Today it is learning AI, tomorrow it could be something else. And I think that's the governing principle, that take the best that's happening in the world, the most important things that you should know about the world, in a way that they understand. I'll give you a quick example. We ask a simple question, किसने थ्री इडियट्स देखा है? Everybody raises their hands. Then we say चैट जीपीटी इसमें से कौन है? चतुर रामलिंगम. तो आपको क्या बनना है? रैंचो. They understand that better, and these kind of analogies, like for example, she'll say, how she sees that her mom or her nanny have been CEOs of the homes, and they are no less than the CEOs outside. Now that connects, because yeah, a mother does run the house, she manages money, she solves conflict, she applies emotional intelligence, she's collaborating with the ecosystem that runs the house. And this is the way we pull the women into our fold, to then have self-induced commitment to learn, rather than forced through a college or an NGO partner that we also have, but we want them to take ownership of why they are learning this.
I think it's more organic the
Yeah.
way you want
Yeah.
to
It
get
has
in.
to be relatable. I think
Yeah.
if you jump straight into AI and chat
They won't
GPT, you're going to
understand.
lose
Yeah.
the audience. You have to find a very relatable and familiar point of entry into a very large space, which is scary, daunting, and unfamiliar to them. So I think that's where we try and bridge the gap.
So, very interesting. So, when you go to these places and when you try to talk to them, what is the level of enthusiasm you see in the women, or, what kind of response, I would say, that's a better way to ask?
So I think when you forget us talking to them, I think when they talk to us is when we realize the true potential of why we're doing what we're doing, and why it's so important for not just our organization but for every organization to think forward in the future. You might think that because of a particular demographic or region with where they come from, they don't have the tools or the access or the ability, which yes, a part of which is true, but I think they are far more ahead of where any of us could be in today's context. They have a device that has changed the way that they think. And I think the only piece lacking here is the opportunity and the bridge to bring them to where their future lies. And that's where we want to be, and that's where we play. They are very, very enthusiastic about wanting to work, wanting to build a career. Some of the most ambitious women that I have met in my entire 5 years of working in this space. Also very, very confident about the fact that they can take these learnings and apply it to their benefit. I think that's something that makes us very happy, is that they're not just enthusiastic and happy to learn, but they're also willing to put in the effort, put in the time, put in the hours that's required to do that little extra bit on top of what we're teaching them. And I think at the end of the program, when we see them interact with some of the speakers that we bring in, like he said, a Prajakta Kohli, or we've had, Ms. Poona Mahajan address them as well, the confidence with which they apply that learning in that setting is, I think, what excites us and shows us the true potential of what we're doing.
Yeah, just to add to this, we were in again what I really enjoy about building Nimaya with Navya and the team is that we always are on the road. Most of our work is not in Bombay unless it's to meet you. So we were in one of those site meetings, and this girl comes up, and we ask this question to the girls, right? Like, okay, what is your greatest takeaway from this GenAI Ready Nari program that you were a part of? And then this one girl comes up and says, मेरा नाम so and so है. Then we ask, अच्छा आपके बारे में बताओ. So she says, मेरे पापा पेट्रोल पंप पे काम करते हैं. Okay. तो आपने AI सीखा, and one of the things that we teach as part of our curriculum is how to train a chatbot. So we said, अच्छा तो आप क्या करने वाली है ये सीख के साथ? And she says that, in my village there are many young children who don't have their grandparents. So I am going to create a chatbot called Smart Dadi, who will then say stories to other young people in my community. A very simple idea, right? But she picked a human insight
Correct.
of what's lacking in her village. Probably she had the privilege of having a grandparent, but probably she's seen that there are many in her community that don't. And then she realized, oh, there's something called a chatbot that can take any shape and form, because we show different utilities of a chatbot, from mental health to customer service and so on. Now she connected these two ideas and said, I'm going to make a Dadi bot, a smart Dadi is what she called it. And I was like, wow. Now whether she does it, she doesn't do it, it works, doesn't work, doesn't matter. It is to spark the imagination of possibility and to show that, hey, now if you know how to talk, because you don't need to really code to train a chatbot, you literally can talk to ChatGPT and a bot will be ready. Anything is possible. I think the next Zepto or Ola is not going to be in a Bombay or a Bangalore. It's going to come from Faridabad or Varanasi. And because now you can sit there and create. And I think that's the power of what Navya and I are doing.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, the Dadi board,
Yeah.
the example, I think it's very,
Yeah.
a feel-good case study, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
And the kind of emotion that the little girl has come
Yeah,
up to,
yeah.
thinking about that, what they can do with AI. I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
No, I mean, like that, there are multiple stories. Like one of I didn't know this, one of our team members told me that some of the girls are creating a small, algorithm or an agentic AI to sync their menstrual cycles. But the fun part is, ताकि इसको आज तंग नहीं करना है. So now they all know कि whoever is going through their period, and then now this one doesn't have to be harassed. And they're working on that on their own. This is not even like, enabled by us. And I was like, that's brilliant. I'm sure there is an app that exists that already does that, and they probably don't know about it. But imagine now these organic ideas are coming up like that. Some new innovation that nobody has created will also come. And that's what we want to do, which is why the way we even structure our learning experience, our curriculum, we say 80% action, 20% gyan. Because also because, like I said, I need to have good trainers to give good gyan. And until we solve that problem, what we're doing is we get very good facilitators who can enable learning by doing. So we will bring in like a AI trainer from some company near whenever our program site is, and then that person will go and teach them how to train a chatbot by enabling them to do rather than writing on the blackboard. And I think in many ways, I was just telling her casually again that we need to invent the Madame Montessori version of training youth in AI. Like how Montessori, invented this way for children to be themselves and learn the basic skills. We need to invent that for teaching AI, and that's our next mission. So we've just built our curriculum team, and we're working towards becoming a credit program, so that yes, whether you like it or not, people still take credits or degrees seriously. Then okay, we'll become a part of your degree, but the way we'll teach will be nothing like what you've experienced. Because sadly, the learners also, where we go, the classrooms that they come from are an outdated experience. And I won't say more because this is about future and possibility and positivity, but they come from a very outdated learning experience. So we also don't want to recreate the same for them, but teaching AI. It's also how you teach has to change.
Right.
And just to add to that also, I think our approach is also a very community-driven approach. You can't have one person sitting in a classroom and learning how to prompt to, chat GPT or how to build a chatbot. I think it has to be a community experience, which is what makes the program so great. And we've seen benefits of that, because at the end of one of our sessions, when we asked the girls, what do you want to do now? Now that you have all the mastery of AI in your mind, what is your next step? And she said that I want to go home and teach this to my nani. And that to us is a success, because the second you teach one person the positivity, the advantage, and the benefit of using this, it spreads out into the community and into the regions that we work in. And I think that for us was a very, very positive feedback point, that when you train one girl, she's going to go home, she's going to go to her community, and she's going to teach that to hundreds of other girls. And that's how you build, and that's how you grow the vision and mission of what Nimaya is doing to the larger population.
I'd like to add on this because this is the core of what and why we do. So, typically what happens in this demographic is role models would become girls or boys in this case as well, who got a job, right? So you come from a very difficult circumstance, and somebody who got a job suddenly, is someone that everyone looks up to, which is great. But what Nimaya wants to change is saying, but today getting a job is not enough. It is saying that, hey, this girl Nimaya Nari living in a particular community is not just working, she's working in a meaningful role. So let me give you an example. One of our first programs that we did in Bombay, with a tier 2 college, there's a young girl, okay, nobody has probably made 25,000 rupees, more than 25,000 rupees a month in her house. And after her program, we also enable job access in aspirational and meaningful roles. So now she became a founder's office manager of a buzzing startup. Now imagine that girl when she goes to a community, what is she saying? She's not saying I got a job. She's saying I'm working directly with the founder of a startup, and I could do this because I sharpened my so and so skills. I invested time in extracurricular exposure. Now that is the positive change we want to create, because if people just create a benchmark ki job chahiye, job mil jayega, but that job you could get laid off. I mean, layoffs are happening by the thousands. So how do you get a job that can become a sustainable and meaningful career? That is what we are trying to also story tell. Again, thanks to Navya, we are able to put these stories out very powerfully, and we've seen that ripple effect, because now this girl's 5 friends are actually starting their own startup. Right, and we're tracking these stories, and this is what we want to do. Because just saying, somebody asked me where we're pitching to a funder, and we didn't get through because the question was, okay, what is your placement percentage? And I refused to answer that question, because I said that if the metric of any skilling program is kitno ko job laga, in this day and age that is an expired metric. Because then I'll have to track kitne ko job tika. Then what will you do? But I am basically saying I'm ensuring you from being laid off by enhancing your natural intelligence and ability to co-create with AI. That is more powerful, because that will ensure that whether you have a job or not, you will always have income, because now you could be a freelance worker. So as Nimaya, Navya and I also want to fight that change what impact means in the context of upskilling. Change what it's not again a repeat job, but it's the ability to build a sustainable career in the times of this disruption that we are in. That is what impact is for us.
Got it, got it. I think that's like, I think the entire mission and the vision of your organization you have explained me pretty well in depth, and yeah, that's amazing, the examples that you have given. So you guys have 2 flagship events, right? GenAI Ready Nari and Creator Nari. So
Flagship program.
programs.
Yes.
So what is the, if you can talk a little bit about those programs, like how do you take it, how students get enrolled, and what are taught, like in the sense, what are the tools that you give?
Yeah.
Like you said that they are taught how to train a chatbot. So what are the tools, and who are the facilitators who are helping them, all of it?
Yeah.
So I think to set the context and going off what Samyak just said as well, I think for us at Nimaya, we're pushing the boundaries of what a traditional job looks like. We want our girls and our Nimaya Naris to not just fit the mold of, I'm going to sit in an office and work for, 12 hours, 14 hours a day, and that's how I'll build my career. I think everything that we teach, the entire curriculum, the entire messaging around what we do is to allow you to push yourself to say that I can also become a creator. I can also become a startup founder. I don't need to, just follow what the traditional trajectory and path of a job is in today's context, because the possibilities today are endless. So that's where we created GenAI Nari and Creator Nari from. So to talk about Creator Nari, I think we know that the creator economy is one of the fastest growing in India today. We've had the Prime Minister talk about it. It's become an increasingly aspirational job for a lot of young people today, and especially young women. I think you can be sitting in your home any part of the country and build a great life and career for yourself by becoming a creator. And I think what we're seeing as well today, in especially in this space, is that is actually one of the largest soft power that we have in the country: influencers. Speaking to an audience, communicating about whatever that may be, whether you like to cook, whether you want to be a fashion designer, whether you want to talk about fintech, whether you want to dance. I think that platform has given a lot of people a voice, and because of that, a very, very aspirational career that we're seeing growing today. And that's also a vision and mission that we want to support, that you could be from any part of the country and become a creator if you have a purpose, if you have a voice, and especially if you have a strong message that you want to give out to people. We will help you create that platform for yourself. We will enable you with the tools, everything from, how do you shoot and record a video, to how do you craft and create a compelling story for where and what you come from. Also, with Creator Nari, we want to, like Samyak said, always bring in relatable examples, relatable role models. So partnering with people who are very successful creators themselves, many whom we have had the opportunity of working with through our previous batches. How do you bring them on to the program, give them one-on-one mentoring with the girls, to hear from them directly on how they built a career for themselves in the creator space. So this is a project that we're very, very excited about. I think it's something that the girls would be very excited about as well, because we see it all over social media today. And I think for us is not just tying in the financial aspect of it, that, okay, you can earn X amount by becoming a creator, but also, like Samyak said, which is at the heart of Nimaya, is how do you build purpose with what you do and every single thing that you do. So even if you're a creator, you have a purpose, you have a message, and how do you bring that together with the tools of actually creating income for yourself and then reaching out to a larger community. So Creator Nari is, centered around that.
So just to add on to Creator Nari, it all started with, we were actually in our GenAI program, and somebody came and said, why don't you teach us how to run a podcast? Because you have Navya, who runs one of the biggest podcasts in the country. What the hell, Navya? And that got us thinking that, see, when you're a creator, or when you learn creation skills, you may or may not end up being a creator, but these skills that you learn, how to talk, how to capture attention, how to build your own brand, these can be used in absolutely any field, right? Why is she a good podcaster? Because she knows how to have a good conversation. Now that can be used anywhere. So the ethos of Creator Nari first was to because creation or content creation is now pretty much like knowing English. We started Creator Nari, but then the thought that went on is, okay, for example, someone's a homemaker and coming from a difficult circumstance, but she knows how to cook great food. Everybody typically has a smartphone these days, at least in urban cities. Well, then why don't we bridge the gap between your phone and your skill and your skill of cooking by giving you the ability to use your phone to get your cooking skills out there to the world, that can make you known, that can make you earn money, and also, just keep you constructively engaged. But building on to that, we more specifically teach skills like, even from how to edit videos using AI tools, to how to brainstorm with AI to create content, one that is unique and not cookie cutter, to fun activities like, we get AI to role play as Prime Minister Modi, and now you have to interview Prime Minister Modi. To, now you have to prepare an influencer strategy for Kareena Kapoor. Now, none of these people are part of our program, unfortunately, yet, but we'll get there. But now suddenly you've created this, like, aspirational pressure, and then they take it seriously. And the kind of questions that come, or the kind of content that they create, is fascinating, because they are now engaging with these kind of names from their own point of view. And that also opens up, thoughts in their mind about what further content they want to create. So that's our Creator Nari program, where we take fundamental skills like editing and interviewing and researching, and then create these very abstract content ideas to make you see that there are no limitations in the kind of content that you can create. That's Creator Nari. And GenAI Ready Nari is a slightly more formal program. It's a 40-hour program where we teach you the fundamentals of prompting AI. We teach you how AI works, simple things like what is LLM, what are neural networks, just to build that fundamental intuitive awareness, to then role play based activities and simulation based activities where you actually co-create and solve problems with AI. And then there's also an element of smart workplace skills where you learn the building blocks of critical thinking, problem solving, first principles thinking. And another thing very interesting we also do is we're also doing micro learning, where you learn something in the classroom, then there's also your WhatsApp based learning that happens. So we'll have a small micro case study called Save the Company, where we create a scenario of a company crashing down, and you have to use some skill that you learn to save that company by engaging with our batch managers and the rest of your cohort on WhatsApp. And this program also covers exposure to different CXOs, founders, because we have the ability to bring those people and interact with our audience. So that's also part of it. And then there is placement support. And then we keep in touch with you for the rest of your career journey, because once a Nimaya Nari, always a Nimaya Nari.
Amazing, amazing. So when you talk about the AI tools like ChatGPT,
Yeah.
Perplexity, there are so many,
Yeah.
and every day you wake up and you end up seeing a new one.
Yeah.
It has arrived. So how do you keep them updated on a daily basis?
Very
And
good. Yeah.
who are the people, like I know you guys are trying to find trainers
Yeah.
who can properly train these Naris, but how are you doing it now?
So we do have trainers. It's just that we have to unfortunately limit the scale of our program. Okay. So we will never do a program unless we find the right trainer. So yes, I mean, if there's no trainer, there's no program. I think that the way we are building this out is we don't want to be teachers. I repeat, we want to be facilitators, because this is the kind of knowledge, as you rightly said, every day is something new, right? So then we are focusing on what doesn't change, which is why I keep saying natural intelligence and your cognition in the context of emerging technologies. So our focus remains there. So whether it's GPT, Perplexity, cloud, or using Arcwise to analyze data, Midjourney to create images, it's endless, right? There's no code platforms to create your own app. It's endless. So we are focusing, that's why I said the Montessori method of teaching AI is focus on the building block that you need, that can adapt and take whatever shape that it does. And also look, there's this one thing that is a hard truth, that whether it's Nimaya or any upskilling, for profit or not for profit, has to accept. Your job is to spark the fire. Now, how far it goes, how intense it blows, that depends on the individual themselves, and you cannot take that away.
So, given that, in future, are you guys planning to, partner with any AI tool vendor or any big AI companies like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be something that we are working towards. And I think going back to our earlier point of, we as facilitators can, create an ecosystem where this knowledge is given to the Naris. But I think a very large and missing piece to, I think, a lot of work that happens in this space is from organizations that need to accept and understand the intake of this audience, right? Like, we're doing this because we want to create, young women who have, aspirational careers or want to think in the future for themselves and what they want to do with their lives. But I think employers are a very big piece to this puzzle, and having them understand the benefit and I think from their side also an added responsibility, to hire such young women is also very important. So, not just for helping the delivery of the training, but also I think from an employment perspective, we would love to partner with, large tech companies, AI platforms, startups that are working in this space, because I think only when the two of us come together can we truly create an economy that supports the growth of young women in aspirational careers when it comes to technology. But I think their approval and their hand in this is very, very important. And I think that is something that we are really looking forward to do as well.
We're very open to partnering with large AI companies, but again, the question will be, we don't feel that, okay, taking X amount of free subscriptions and then just giving it solves any problem. Yes, it's a tick mark at both sides, but that's not why we started Nimaya. Nimaya is not a tick mark for us, it is a mark that we want to make in the world. So yes, through your platform, we are very open. Through your platform, we'd like to say that we're very open to partnering with AI companies and technology companies, of course, as employers. But is there a way we could join hands to invent a way to get people to internalize AI rather than view it as an external tool? And that is, again, I come back to question of curriculum and learning experience, and being bold about it and not sticking to conventional formats. So yeah, please join Navya and my team and our effort to co-create and invent a way to teach AI. That's what we are more interested in than just a symbolic partnership.
So I think you're already working with one important piece of this entire ecosystem,
Yeah.
that is the educational institutions.
Yeah.
So are you also working with the corporates? Because I think they form the other part of the
I mean, as employers, yes, but because we're also, our mandate is, as Nimaya, is more to go to colleges or NGOs that work with young women from restrictive backgrounds, and we'd like to stick to that mandate and not dilute focus from anywhere.
Got it. So, like I heard so much about your case studies and the way you interact with the children and also, with their families and the institutions. So, who has been your, the most critical partner in this entire process, like, corporates, governments, and how do this partnership, shape your reach and response?
So I think, like we said, and we keep reiterating, the heart of what we do are the Naris. So they are our biggest partners. It doesn't matter to me, and I'll be bold in saying this. Which corporate is partnering with us. Who else we are partnering with, from a trainer to a. I think the only thing that matters is, are the Naris excited and interested and keen to do this? Then Samyak and I will turn the world upside down to make sure that that happens. I think that's all that matters to us. And of course, the support from the colleges that we've worked with has been extremely important, and they have been very kind in wanting us to bring this program to them again and again, year after year. Once we do the initial batch with them, so I think that has been the biggest backbone has been the support from the educational institutions and non-profits that have supported us in giving us access to these young girls who are keen to work. Of course, I'd also say that a large part of why Nimaya functions the way it functions is because of the team that we have. How we build the curriculum, how we deliver it. I don't think people understand the amount of work it takes in order to actually get this program from a curriculum stage to a Nimaya Nari. So I think that has been something that we've worked on over the last few years to perfect, to make sure that it's done in an efficient manner, in an easy manner, in a manner that it's exciting for the girls to learn, but also at the same time challenging, that it gets them to think, it gets them to apply it in different contexts, whether they are at home, whether they're in school. I think that delivery mechanism is also something that is very important to us. So our team are the biggest partners. The biggest reason why we do this is the Nimaya Naris, and the colleges that have supported us and continue to partner with us are also very, very important, in this entire chain and ecosystem of Nimaya.
As you know, to thank you. As Mukesh Bhai gets free credit. Can we continue?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I tend to agree with her that as Nimaya, we're very clear that we value the other people in the ecosystem, other stakeholders, which is the college, the NGO partner, the funder. But the Naris are most important because, and I'd like to kind of build on why it is so for us, because what we're doing, as you would agree, is very experimental in nature. It is telling a Nari, hey, ditch learning the prescribed curriculum, or give it less attention maybe, and give more attention to enhancing your extracurricular wisdom, whether through us or through other means as well. And if a Nari is taking that courageous act, which is a kind of like an act of rebellion, right? Because you're telling your very orthodox mother and father that I am going to stay back 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. after college to learn AI, which their parents obviously have no clue about. Their parents' only aspiration is probably to get her married. So when she is fighting, then who are we to kind of listen, give in to a college's restrictive mindset, or just stick to mandates that may not really enable a successful intervention in her life the way she needs it. Having said that, I think both of us are very blessed with having funders like Escorts Kubota Limited, Datamatics Limited, who have given us a canvas. These companies have told us that you guys are reinventing how to upskill young women from underserved communities. Here's the paint, here's the canvas, paint a new picture. Our team, I'll give a small example, right? So one of the things that you have to do is create an impact report, which is a compliance for any NGO. We told our team, forget compliance. how can we reimagine an impact report where it's more of stories than just graphs? Because at the end of the day, the stories that we create is what is going to truly matter. And now the team is sitting and working day and night to reinvent impact reports when there is no need, because no one's really asked for a new impact report, right? The funder is also asking because they have certain compliance. We'll also put it on our website like any other NGO. But we both, being communications people, also said no, the impact report has to be a window into the lives that you change, because that's actually going to motivate more people to come and join our fold. So also we are blessed with teams who are allowing us that canvas of experimentation, and also NGOs. Like I must mention organizations like Udan Foundation, Vidya Foundation, Seva, who are our partners that give us access to the beneficiaries in addition to colleges. Even Mumbai Police, for that matter, we did a program to provide these skills to daughters of constables. And these partners have, because for those who understand the development sector, it is a very, like, there are many walls and boxes in the development sector. But our partners, funders, and team have allowed us to break all those boxes, and that wouldn't have been possible to do without this enabling ecosystem, which not many organizations in the country are unfortunately not blessed with.
And just to add to that, I think, especially with the funders that we have worked with, and like Samyak said, I think it's also a very bold step and a courageous step on their part to reimagine what CSR looks like and partner with an organization like Nimaya that, like Samyak said, is really trying to do something new, trying to do something different from the conventional mold of what a CSR project looks like. So, even for us, we've been fortunate to work with people who can think beyond what is in the current scope of a corporate social responsibility. And I think that's where we have been very, very lucky that we have been allowed to, as an organization, think boldly, think largely, think very, very out of the box of what is considered a traditional program, or, when a funder gives you money for a CSR project, like Samyak said, looking away from just that sheet of check marks. I think we've been very fortunate to have people, in the development sector, as funders, even as people who've come on and said that we're interested in what you're doing. I think that is a very bold step, and one that we feel needs to be continued to be taken if we want to largen the scope of what CSR looks like in India today. And I think, and I hope that we are an organization that can set and create a blueprint for what it can look like and where the possibility can lie.
Yeah, because I really like what you say. She says the problem is the word CSR, corporate social responsibility. She invented the word corporate social investment, because you are investing in the future and the returns. I mean, it's a different topic altogether for a podcast, but you have to, if you want a market to sell to, you have to have people who can buy your product, which means you have to upskill them in the way that they need, give them the facility that they need, the healthcare that they need, etc. So it is an investment to get returns in the end, and 10x, 20x, 30x returns. And I think companies like the Tatas, Reliance, Aditya Birla Group have understood that. And I think that when they have been doing charity and philanthropy even before CSR was a formal act. And I think we want to be on the opposite spectrum, where as an organization we want to create new templates where the mindset of the money can change from responsibility to investment, because there also have to be then NGOs that work like that. In many ways, Nimaya operates like any AI enabled tech startup, except that we don't take money home.
So, it's very interesting to understand that how it is a corporate social investment. I think that is a very new idea that I have also come across today. So, you're also upskilling the society, upskilling a very major portion of the human race, that is the women. So now, what is Nimaya's, actual role in, if we see in a larger spectrum of the ecosystem of women empowerment and, creating a social impact? I mean, I know we have discussed a lot, but if you can, just tell me a little bit on that.
You start.
I didn't get this question.
So my question is, like, what would be the larger position that Nimaya will take when it comes to the ecosystem of women empowerment? Not merely CSR activity or something like that.
We often toy with this word empowerment or enablement. So sometimes some of our emails say we enable women and some emails say we empower women. The reason I share this is both of us believe that no organization or no individual or no corporate can assume that status to empower somebody else, because then you've already assumed a form of disempowerment. Of course it exists, but now you have to look at it differently. You have to say, how can we enable the women? So as Nimaya, the focus is saying that, listen, you don't decide what a woman should be taught, you don't decide what a woman needs. You look at the environment, the externalities, look at her reality, and have a self-induced approach to upskilling, where there is ownership taken from within, there is interest taken from within. So I think really, as Nimaya as a whole, in the development sector ecosystem, we want to create a new template of how to understand your beneficiary, and change from beneficiary to partner. Then what does a partner need to achieve the shared goal? Second is, we to build on Navya's thought process of CSR becoming, instead of a responsibility, it's an investment. Really then drive the mindset change with policymakers, with the CSR ecosystem, that what does impact metrics mean? If again, like I'll bring back, if just employment is going to be a metric, then that's just, it's like, okay, it's like what's happening in, the startup world, where you agree on a number, I agree on a number, and that becomes a number, but we all know it's not the number. For example, if you the reason why this thought came is, what is the one of the biggest flaws of our education system, that the burden of its success is on the student, not the teacher, because the marks decide whether the student is successful or not, and the cumulative marks decide whether the classroom was successful or not, but whoever questioned the teacher. Similarly, you can't put the burden of impact on placement outcomes, because there are so many factors. If there are no jobs, then there are not going to be jobs, no matter how good the candidate is,
How skilled you
or
are.
skilled you are, right? So you have to evolve also what the metrics mean, that if you are truly wanting to make someone competent to work in a new reality, then create metrics that judge that as much as other outcomes. So I think both of our constructive fight is to bring about that mindset change. And I think when we look back 20 years from now, because that's what we've promised Nimaya will go on till, or even longer, I think if someone were to ask us after 20 years in a similar conversation, what are you proud about? It is to say that we brought about a mindset change in how we look at upskilling women, and how we look at CSR and grants at an institutional level.
Amazing, amazing.
I think I'll add to that is that I think for the longest time, and like Samyak has said, I think CSR has been looked at as a metric, as a tick mark, as a compulsion. I think that's what we want to remove. The idea of it being a compulsion, and the idea of it being not just an investment to the beneficiary, but also an investment to the organization that is investing the money towards that, right? That's why we invest money. We don't just invest to grow our financial markets, but also because we are going to get some form of a return. And I think, like Samyak said, the second we stop looking at it as a transaction, that this is a piece of money I'm giving in order to tick a box on my compliance sheet, is when we'll understand the true value and potential. And that's where Nimaya comes in as an organization that can break that mold, change your mindset on how and what CSR can look like in the future. Because I personally feel that if we don't, push towards expanding the scope of CSR in India, then we're doing a large disservice to our community. Because I think we, as India and as a country, have some of the brightest minds. And how can we tap into that value? And that's where you need large organizations who are willing to put that money towards that. And also looking at beneficiaries who are keen to take that learning and then build a life for themselves. I think that's when we really move forward as a country, is when two pieces of the puzzle come together to understand that the scope is not what's been set for us or what's been given to us over these last many years, but it's something that we have to build together. And I think that's where we are at. We want to build together with people to kind of build not just India as a future forward nation that looks at and enables their population with technology, but also who looks at, investing back in society. And I really hope that as an organization, we can create and provide a template for that.
In fact, somewhere she said that we were at a talk, and she said that, why is it assumed that a village only needs a toilet? Why not a startup incubator? Yes, you need toilets and they should be built, due respect to that mission. But why can't a company say, as a part of my CSR, I am going to create a startup incubator there? For that, the policy has to be more
But
specific
I
and
think she
evolved.
was right when she said that it's more of a compulsion. That
But that
we
no.
just have to do it. So
Yeah.
let's start with that.
Because toilet is easy and the
It's
pictures look
easy.
good and it aligns
And
with.
also there's a stereotype that villages don't have toilets.
Yeah, and they may not, but they also need startup ecosystems
Yeah, true.
because those kids won't have jobs.
Correct.
And they don't want to come to a Bombay or Bangalore, as you would agree. In fact,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
Gandhiji said back in the day is going to be truer now. India lives and must live in its villages, because that's where I think the next phase of development will be.
I think the development is already
Yeah.
moving that direction because
It is.
companies are coming to tier 2 and
And
metro
I
cities.
think that's where the next 20 years of India will lie, is bringing those opportunities. Why ask them to move to a Delhi or a Bombay or a Bangalore? Take the opportunity to them.
Correct.
Why ask or tell someone that you can only come to a larger city to build an aspirational career for yourself? Why can't you take that opportunity to them there, to where they live, to where they reside, where the community is, and allow them to build a career for themselves there?
I think that way Nimaya is playing a very important role in empowering and skilling those communities. And so you said that there are certain geographies or demographics that you're focusing right at this point. So what will be your next areas in which part of India you're gonna targeting?
I mean, we have not thought.
Yeah, I mean, see, we've worked largely in Haryana, Faridabad, in New Delhi. We have worked in Lucknow. We've worked in Mumbai. We have worked in Gujarat as well. I think, of course, South India is somewhere where we would love to do a next project. And I think a place that Samyak and I are very, very keen to start is also Northeast. I think that is definitely on our map for Nimaya. So we touch all four corners of India. But I think the Northeast and South India is somewhere where we are very, very excited and keen to work.
It's also because she enjoys the food in Northeast
Yes.
and Southern India, and a big part of our personal motivation is when we get to travel to these interiors and hinterlands, just enjoy the flavors and the cultural delights of these places. But yeah, I think the spirit of Northeast is essentially, again, the whole idea of take exposure where it doesn't reach.
Right.
So maybe it could be Kashmir after Northeast as well.
So it's like a 20 or maybe 20 or plus.
Definitely longer than
that. However long in both our families, the people have lived till 90. So I think
we have
so
a
long
long
as
way
we
to
live,
go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so right now we were talking about how you guys are helping children to learn the AI skills.
Yeah.
But how Nimaya is using AI in its daily operations and project execution. So if you can talk to me about you guys leveraging AI.
I think it's a very core piece of everything that we do. I think it starts off with us as co-founders of an organization, to ourselves understand what we're teaching. Whether that's using Chat GPT for crafting emails or for creating brainstorming techniques. I think as founders, if we are not up to date with the world of AI, the world of technology, then we won't be able to put that knowledge into the curriculums that we're building. A lot of processes within the organization are also, automated using AI, whether that's, tracking attendance of our learners, whether that is, creating decks for the actual training programs. I think all of these things are also something that we have to apply and learn. Otherwise, we'll be behind the curve. We can't be teaching if we aren't willing to learn ourselves. So I think that is something that Samyak and I and the entire team, if you see our WhatsApp group, it's filled with articles on AI or a news or a podcast or something that is talking about a new revelation or a new thought when it comes to using and adapting AI to, teach that to a larger audience. So I think for us as well, it's very important to constantly learn and constantly keep ourselves educated on the space that we're teaching in, so that we can constantly improve our learning, our delivery, our curriculum, to make sure that our learners are getting the best and the most up to date of what AI stands for today.
I think two things that we both are very excited about that will be rolled out from January. One is that so all our training sessions are video recorded. So now we are basically training an AI to understand what a good trainer is. And then what will happen is that when these videos come in, the AI will immediately scan that day's training videos, and based on our prescribed model, it will auto-generate feedback for the trainers. And what that happens is sometimes human error can be in spotting some mistakes, or batch managers are busy doing operational work. But now this AI will, because it understands what a good trainer is, what are the keywords that should have been said for this particular session and so on, and then it will auto give feedback to the trainer. So what that will do eventually when we scale is quality control of trainers, which is so much more important than anything else. Number two is that we're building something called Smart Didi, and I promise I didn't steal it from Smart Dadi, that idea. Where it's a bot that will be on our Nimaya app that is given to all learners, because when they actually join the workplace, they need someone to talk to use what they learn to solve the problems of the day. And Smart Didi will be trained to understand the context and the reality of the learner, which is something that a GPT, standard GPT model would not give. So these two things, one at the trainer end and one giving continued learning and continued coaching through Smart Didi, is, I think, a very future forward way of improving quality of learning and enabling continued learning. And that's something that we're very excited about. And in 6 months from now, we are programming agentic AIs to become batch managers.
Okay.
Because one of the things that we want to do is, Nimaya is working towards becoming a credit. Our curriculum, the GenAI Nari program, we're working towards building it into a credit. Now, what that means is anybody can use it as per the national education policy, which is great because there's no Pepsi versus Coke here. The more the merrier. We want to partner with people to reach where we cannot reach. So we're building this platform that we will give other organizations to use our curriculum and use our batch management protocol that have been perfected for the past 4 years and deliver this program to wherever you are. So then Nimaya will become like a platform for other organizations to deliver high quality education in AI and soft skills to women in particular only. And that's our next step. So AI is at the core of improving quality and enhancing our reach at the same standard, because sometimes scale compromises depth. But that's the power of enterprise AI. You can create depth, the same depth at scale.
And I think these developments which you are doing, and you're saying that in January they will come out. I think they're amazing. I mean, you yourself is automating a lot of your things using AI, and I think that's very motivating and inspirational. So, finally, my question to you, and today through our platform of AI, what will be your message to the viewers, to our viewers?
You start first.
Don't get so excited about technology that you forget humans, is what I would say. Because at the end of the day, Earth exists and must exist for natural beings first, which is the plants, the animals, us humans. And AI should be a friend, or very bluntly, a slave. It cannot become a master. And the tech community is going to be responsible to ensure that.
And it cannot replace humans.
Well, if you wanted to replace humans, then I'm wondering what you are.
No,
right?
like there is.
No, I mean, I say you, not you. I meant that whoever is excited about AI replacing humans, I don't know what you are. And this is a very strong view I personally have. Not sure she shares it, but you can't have so much technological advancements that the very reason why technology was created is forgotten, which is to enhance quality of human life, and for all human life, not selected human life. That's what I would say.
I think that is more of a philosophical message. My message would be more like we have been discussing, right? Then we need to think outside the box. I would encourage people who are watching this or who are from the tech community to think outside the box. And, we have shared our story of how we have thought outside the box and how that is building and will build the next generation of India's workforce. So I would ask everyone to think outside the box, to support organizations, not just us, but all organizations that are brave enough to do that, that are looking at the future in a very different way, and especially looking at a future where young women play a very central role. And that to us is very important at Nimaya. So that's what I would encourage everyone to do.
I think I cannot agree more than what you guys have said, and I think it's a very interesting initiative, and as an NGO, it's a very interesting take that you have taken, and I wish you all the best, and thank you for joining me today, Navya and Samyak, and I think it was a wonderful conversation to have you in the show.
And thank you for your platform that you give us.
Thank you so much.